Speaking real, everyday English is one of the most important skills you can build. And that's exactly what this video will help you do. You'll learn simple, useful phrases that people actually use in daily life. Stay with this lesson, and by the end, you'll feel more confident and ready to speak English naturally in real situations. These are the kinds of phrases people use all the time when they talk at work, at school, when shopping, or just hanging out with friends or family. When you learn how to use these phrases the right way, your English starts to sound more natural. You stop thinking in your native language and start speaking more smoothly and with confidence. By the end of this video, you'll know many new phrases and how to use them in your day-to-day conversations. I'll also give you chances to practice so that you're not just listening, but actually learning to speak better. If you want to sound more fluent and more like a native speaker, you're in the right place. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell icon so you won't miss any of the daily English lessons. All right, grab your notebook and a pen. Let's begin. Speaking English well doesn't mean knowing hard grammar rules or long word lists. What really helps is being able to use simple, natural phrases that fit easily into everyday talk. These are the kinds of expressions native speakers use without even thinking about it. They help conversations feel easy and relaxed. You'll hear them in coffee shops, on the phone, at work, or even in the supermarket. Once you start using these phrases often, your speaking will feel more natural. You won't have to stop and think about each word. You'll just talk with confidence, like someone who's been using English for a long time. Take the phrase, "What's up?" for example. This isn't a question that needs a full answer. It's just a friendly way to say hello. You might hear it from a friend after school or work, or when someone picks up the phone. A simple answer like, "Not much, just relaxing," or "Just got back home," is enough. Some people might just reply with "Hey," or "All good." It's not really about the exact words, it's about being friendly. Another easy greeting is, "How's it going?" This is a little more polite than "What's up?" but still casual. You might hear it from someone you work with or a neighbor. A good reply would be, "Pretty good. How about you?" Or, "Things are going well, thanks." These kinds of phrases help you start a conversation in a nice and easy way without sounding too serious. Now, imagine you're on a call and someone asks you for some information, but you need a minute to find it. Instead of saying, "Wait," which can sound a little rude, you can say, "Just a second," or "Give me a moment." These phrases are soft, polite, and they let the other person know you're still there and paying attention. If someone wants your opinion and you want to share your thoughts nicely, you can say, "I think so," or "In my opinion." These help you speak in a respectful way. Let's say someone thinks the meeting will end early today. You can say, "Yeah, I think so too. Everyone seems ready to finish." If you're not so sure, you could say, "Maybe," or "I guess," which sound gentle and not too strong. Sometimes in conversations, you just want to show that you understand the other person. You don't always need to say much. Short replies like, "I see," or "That makes sense," are great for this. Maybe someone couldn't come to an event because they were sick or had something urgent come up. You could say, "I see. Hope you're feeling better now." Or, "That makes sense. These things happen." Even though the replies are short, they show that you care and understand. Let's say someone gives you a plan, like, "Let's meet at the coffee shop at 4. You don't need to say a full sentence like, "Yes, I think that's a good plan." You can just say, "Sounds good," or "That works for me." These simple replies keep the talk moving along easily and show that you're okay with the plan. Here's a little example to practice with. You're meeting a friend after work and you message them to check if everything's okay. They reply saying they're running late and ask if 6 is better. You answer, "Sounds good. Let me know when you're on your way." Later, they say they're leaving now. You respond, "Cool. See you soon." These are the kinds of simple, friendly conversations that happen every day. The more you practice, the more natural they'll feel. Try saying these small talks out loud. You can even write your own versions and change the time or place. Maybe it's not 5 p.m., but 2 p.m., and you're meeting at a library instead. Doing this kind of practice helps your brain get used to speaking like this for real. Let's keep going and learn more phrases you can use every day. One phrase you'll hear often is, "Let me know." You use this when you want someone to tell you something later. For example, you're not sure when someone will arrive, so you say, "Let me know when you get here." Or maybe you're helping a friend and say, "Let me know if you need anything." It's a friendly way to keep the conversation open. Another useful one is, "Keep me posted." This means you want updates. You can say this when working on a project or waiting for news. If someone tells you they're applying for a job, you might say, "Nice. Keep me posted." It shows you're interested and you care about what's going on. Now, think about times when you're going to be late. Instead of saying, "I'm late," which might sound a bit rough, you can say, "I'm running late." This is softer and very common. Maybe you're stuck in traffic. You might text, "Hey, I'm running a little late. Be there in 10. It sounds more polite and natural. Sometimes plans have to change. In those cases, instead of saying no, you can say, "Can we reschedule?" It shows you respect the other person's time. You might say, "Sorry, something came up. Can we reschedule for tomorrow? This keeps the conversation friendly and open for new plans. Here's another short story. You're texting a friend about lunch. You ask if they're still free at 1. They say something came up and ask if you can meet later. You reply, "Sure, no problem. Let me know what time works for you." They say maybe 3. You answer, "That works for me. Just keep me posted if anything changes." The talk is easy and natural. You've used simple phrases that make everything sound smooth. Remember, speaking good English doesn't mean everything has to be perfect. It's about making yourself understood in real life. The more you use these small, common phrases in your daily conversations, whether you're talking, texting, or calling, the more fluent you'll sound. These expressions are like small puzzle pieces that build strong communication. Use them often, say them out loud, and they'll start to feel like a natural part of how you speak. In many situations, especially at work or in social settings, you need to ask for things politely. Saying exactly what you want can sometimes sound too direct. To sound nicer, you can use phrases like, "Would you mind?" This makes your request sound kind. For example, instead of saying, "Close the window," you could say, "Would you mind closing the window?" It feels much more polite. Another way is to say, "Could you please?" You can use this at work or with friends. Like, "Could you please send me the report by tomorrow?" Or, "Could you please lower your voice?" These ways of speaking are helpful for both formal and casual moments. What matters most is not just what you say, but how you say it. Speaking in a kind and respectful way helps your English sound smooth and natural. There are also many ways to give your opinion without sounding too strong or forceful. You can say things like, "I think," or "I feel like," to share your thoughts in a softer, more friendly way. For example, if someone asks where to eat, you could say, "I think the Italian place could be nice." Or, "I feel like trying something new today." These kinds of phrases make it easier for others to join in and share what they think too. Let's look at a short situation using these expressions. You're at work and someone has their music up a little too loud. Instead of saying, "Turn that off," you could say, "Hey, would you mind turning the music down a bit?" It sounds more polite. The person might smile and say, "Oh, sure, no worries." Later that day, you're talking with your team about how to start a project. Someone asks for your idea, and you say, "I think we should begin with the main parts, and then we can add the rest later." This kind of answer sounds natural and respectful. Now let's talk about offering help or checking if someone needs something. If you see someone looking busy or stressed, you can say, "Need a hand," or "Can I help you with that?" These are kind and friendly. If someone offers help to you and you want to say yes, you can say, "That would be awesome," or "Thanks, I'd appreciate that. If you want to politely say no, you could say, thanks, I've got it. Or, I think I can handle it. Sometimes you'll need someone to wait. Instead of just saying wait, which might sound too direct, try saying hang on a second or just a minute. For example, if someone asks you something and you need time to check, you could say, give me a second, I'll check, or hold on, I'm looking it up. These phrases help you sound polite while taking your time. Let's imagine you're at the store and someone asks where to find milk. You're not totally sure, so you say, hold on. I think it's near the back. Then they say they're new to the area. You respond, if you need help finding anything else, just let me know. This kind of simple conversation is something you'll run into all the time, and the more you try it, the easier it gets. It's also helpful to know how to agree or disagree naturally. When you agree with someone, instead of always saying yes, you can say exactly, totally, or even I know, right? For example, if someone says, it's so hot today, you might answer, I know, right? It feels like summer. These short responses help keep the conversation going. When you don't fully agree, you can still be polite. You can say, I get what you're saying, but, or, that's a fair point, but, let's say someone thinks the deadline for a project is too soon. You might reply, I see what you mean, but I think if we stay on track, we can do it. This way, you share your view without sounding negative. Ending a chat also has its own natural phrases. Instead of saying, I'm leaving, or just walking away, you can say something like, anyway, I should head out, or it was nice talking to you. If you're talking to a friend, you might say, talk soon, or catch you later. These are friendly and smooth ways to say goodbye. Here's a quick example. You and your friend are chatting about the weekend. They say, I might go hiking if the weather's good. You say, that sounds fun. I was thinking about going to the beach. They answer, yeah, but I'm not sure if I'll have time. You say, yeah, I get that. Weekends go by fast. Then, after a little more talking, you say, anyway, I better go. Nice talking to you. That's how a regular, natural chat sounds. You'll also hear people use little words and phrases while they're thinking. These are called filler words, and they help your speech feel more relaxed. Words like, you know, I mean, actually, or, to be honest, give you a second to think. For example, so you know, it's not that hard once you start, or, actually, I think that's a really good idea. These help you sound more like a native speaker. To get better at this, try practicing in real-life situations. Say you're calling to make a doctor's appointment. You could say, hi, I'd like to set up an appointment. Do you have anything this week? If they ask why you're coming in, you might say, just a general checkup. If they say there's a time open on Friday at 10, you could say, "That works. Thanks." Then you finish with, "All right. See you then. Bye." This is how a regular phone call might go, and you can practice it over and over until it feels natural. The more you listen to how people speak in shows, videos, or podcasts, the more phrases you'll pick up. Try writing down any expressions that sound good or easy to use. Then practice by changing them to fit your own life. For example, if you hear someone say, "I'm not sure yet, but I'll let you know," you can try saying, "I'm not sure yet, but I'll let you know about dinner." Or, "I'll let you know if I can come to the party." Doing this helps your brain remember the phrases and use them without thinking. The goal here isn't to speak perfectly. It's to speak with comfort and confidence. That's what fluency really means. Also, when someone thanks you, it's nice to have more ways to respond than just, "You're welcome." You can say, "No problem," "Anytime," "It was nothing," or "Don't mention it." For example, if someone says, "Thanks for helping out," you might say, "No worries, happy to help." These small phrases help you sound more friendly and natural. In conversations, you can also show that you're interested by saying things like, "Really? That's cool." Or, "Then what happened?" For example, if someone says, "I tried sushi for the first time," you could respond, "Oh, really? How was it?" Or, "That's cool. What kind did you try?" These small comments show you're listening and want to hear more. Here's a short example between two coworkers. One says, "I had to take my dog to the vet yesterday." The other one replies, "Oh, really? Is she okay?" The first person says, "Yeah, she just needed her shots." Then you might say, "Glad to hear it. Pets are like family." These small conversations help you practice everyday speaking. When someone tells you something surprising or exciting, you can use phrases like, "No way," "Seriously," or "That's crazy." If a friend tells you they won a free trip, you might say, "No way, that's awesome." If someone tells you something sad, you can say, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," or "That's rough." For example, if someone says they lost their job, you could respond, "I'm really sorry to hear that, but my car needs fixing." Then you could say, "That's tough. Hope it gets sorted out soon." Talking this way shows you care, and it helps your English sound real and emotional, not just correct. These simple phrases and real-life situations are what help you speak English more fluently and with confidence. Keep practicing them every day. In English, you'll often hear casual phrases that don't mean exactly what the words say. These are called idioms or slang. For example, when someone says, "I'm beat," they just mean they're really tired. Or if they say, "That was a piece of cake," they mean it was very easy. You don't need to learn every idiom, but it's helpful to know some of the common ones people use every day. Let's say your friend says, I stayed up all night working on my report. You could reply, wow, you were really on top of things. That means they were quick and did a good job. One way to understand idioms better is to listen to how people use them in shows, podcasts, or conversations, and then try saying them yourself. Here's a short example using some idioms. Someone might say, I didn't get much sleep last night, so I'm running on empty today. You could say, yeah, I know how that feels. I had a long night too. Then they say, at least it's Friday. We're almost done with the hard part. You answer, right, just hold on a little longer. These phrases are common and make conversations sound friendly and relaxed. There are also easy ways to talk about future plans without always using will. Try saying things like, I'm thinking of, I'm planning to, or I might. For example, I'm planning to visit my parents next weekend, or I might go out for a walk later. These sound more natural and casual. If someone asks what you're doing over the weekend, you might say, I'm thinking of going hiking if the weather's good, or I might just stay in and rest. It's been a long week. Here's a practice conversation. A classmate says, want to have lunch tomorrow? You say, maybe. I plan to finish some work in the morning, but I'll be free around noon. They say, okay, we'll probably go at 1. You reply, sounds good. I'll let you know for sure tomorrow. This is how people often talk in everyday life, and it sounds easygoing and fluent. Sometimes things don't go the way you hoped, and you might feel frustrated or disappointed. Instead of saying something strong like, I'm really mad, you can use softer words like, I'm a little upset, or it didn't go how I thought it would. For example, if someone says, I studied a lot but still didn't pass, a kind reply would be, that's really disappointing, but don't give up. You'll get it next time. Let's look at another short chat. A friend says, I missed my flight because the taxi came late. You reply, oh no, that's really frustrating. Did you get a new flight? They answer, yeah, but I have to wait 4 hours. You could say, that's rough. Hopefully time goes by fast. These kinds of talks are normal and help you show care in a natural way. Giving compliments and support is also important. You can say, you did a great job. That looks awesome. Or, you've gotten a lot better. These positive words make people feel good and help your English feel friendly and real. Imagine a coworker shows you a finished project. You say, wow, that looks great. You really worked hard. They say, thanks. I've been at it all week. You reply, well, it really shows. Nice job. These small chats are common and help you build confidence when speaking English. Sometimes you don't hear something clearly and need to ask again. Instead of just saying, what, which can sound a little rude, try saying, sorry, can you say that again? Or, I didn't hear that. What did you say? For example, someone speaks too fast and you reply, "Sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you repeat it?" They say, "I said the meeting is at 3. You respond, "Oh, okay, thanks." These polite phrases are useful in work or school settings. Another way to sound more natural is when you give advice or suggestions. Instead of saying, "You should," you can say, "Maybe you could. Why don't you? Or have you tried?" These ways are softer and sound more polite. Let's say someone is feeling stressed. You might say, "Why don't you take a short walk to clear your mind?" Or maybe try breaking up your studying into shorter times. These are friendly ways to help without sounding like you're telling them what to do. Here's an example conversation. One person says, "I've been so tired lately." The other says, "Have you tried going to sleep earlier?" They reply, "Yeah, but I have so much to do." You say, "Maybe you could plan out your time better so you don't feel so rushed." These kinds of helpful chats are good for everyday life. When you agree with someone, instead of just saying, "Yes," you can say, "Exactly, that's true, totally," or "I agree." These make your response sound more natural. If someone says, "Learning English takes time," you can say, "Exactly," and you have to practice a lot. Here's another example. One person says, "Watching movies in English really helps." You say, "Totally." You learn real speech and how people talk. If you want to ask someone's opinion, you can say things like, "What do you think about?" Or, "How do you feel about?" Or, "Have you ever thought about?" These questions start a real conversation. For example, "What do you think about working from home?" The other person might say, "It's nice, but I miss being around people." You say, "Yeah, I get that. Talking to co-workers can be fun." These back and forth talks help your English sound smooth. Let's try a real conversation. Someone asks, "What do you think about learning online?" You say, "Honestly, I think it works well, especially with all the free tools." They reply, "Yeah, but I kind of miss having a teacher in front of me." You answer, "That's fair. Maybe a mix of both would be better." This is a natural way to talk and share ideas. To show interest in what someone says, use short phrases like, "No doubt, I get what you mean," or "That makes sense." These small replies help the conversation move along. If your friend says, "It's hard to stay motivated," you can say, "I get that. I feel the same sometimes." These short responses help you connect. When you want to finish a conversation, there are nice ways to do it. You can say, "It was nice talking to you. Catch you later," or "Let's talk again soon." For example, if you're ending a phone call, you could say, "Okay, I'll let you go now. Talk soon." This way, you end the chat in a polite way. Here's a quick example. Someone says, "I have to go to a meeting." You say, "No problem. Great talking to you. Let's catch up later." This leaves a good feeling at the end of the conversation. In more formal places, like work, it's important to sound polite. Instead of saying, "Send me that," try saying, "Could you send me that?" or "Would you mind sharing that with me?" These are softer and more respectful. Here's a work example. One person says, "Could you help me with this file?" The other says, "Of course, I'd be happy to." The first person says, "Thanks. I just need help with the last part." This way of speaking helps keep a good mood at work. When you want to help someone or ask for help, try saying, "Do you need a hand?" or "Let me help you with that." These sound friendly. If you see someone struggling with something heavy, you might say, "Need a hand with those," or "Let me help you." Here's a short scene. Someone is carrying a bunch of boxes and says, "Wow, these are heavier than I thought." You say, "Let me give you a hand." They smile and say, "Thanks. I really appreciate it." These small, helpful moments happen often and make your English sound smooth and caring. One more thing that can really help you speak more smoothly is learning how to start and keep up small talk. Small talk might not seem like a big deal, but it's how most conversations begin. You can use easy phrases like, "Nice day today, isn't it?" or "Did you watch the game last night?" or "Busy day." These kinds of openers help you start talking with someone in a friendly way. For example, if you're at a coffee shop, you could say, "It's always packed here in the mornings." The person next to you might say, "Yeah, they have great coffee. I come here a lot." Then you could reply, "Same. It's a nice way to start the day." These short chats are a great way to build your confidence when speaking English. Let's do a little practice. Two people meet at the elevator. One says, "Long day." The other replies, "Yeah, lots of meetings." How about you? The first person says, "Same here. I'm already looking forward to the weekend." These kinds of small talks happen all the time and make using English feel more natural. Another great way to sound more fluent is by learning how to talk about your likes and dislikes. In daily English, people don't usually just say, "I like this," or "I don't like that." They often use phrases like, "I'm really into," or "I'm not really a fan of," or "I'd rather." For example, instead of saying, "I like music," you could say, "I'm really into jazz these days," or "I'd rather listen to something calm in the evening." It makes your speaking more interesting and natural. Let's look at a short conversation. One person says, "Want to watch a movie tonight?" The other replies, "Sure, but I'm not really into scary movies. I'd rather watch a comedy." The first person says, "Good idea. I could use a laugh." These kinds of phrases help you sound more like a native speaker. When talking about the future, English speakers often use casual phrases like, I'm going to, I'll probably, or I'm planning to. These are short and common ways to speak about future plans. Instead of saying, I will go to the store, people say, I'm going to the store later. It's simple and sounds more natural. Here's a short example. One person asks, what are you doing this weekend? The other replies, I'm going to visit my grandparents. We're planning a small family dinner. The first person responds, sounds nice. I'll probably just relax at home. These are easy ways to talk about what you plan to do. To speak fluently, it also helps to use small words called softeners or fillers. These are words like actually, kind of, you know, and I mean. You don't need them for the meaning, but they help your speech flow better. For example, I kind of liked the movie, but it was too long. Or, actually, I thought the talk was pretty good. Here's a short chat. One person asks, did you like the concert? The other says, yeah, I mean, it was fun, but the sound wasn't great. The first says, I know, right? It kind of felt too loud. These little words make your talking sound smoother and more natural. Now let's talk about shopping. Whether you're shopping online or in a store, you often use phrases like, how much is this? Or, do you have this in a different size? Or, can I try this on? These are very useful. Instead of saying, I want this, you can say, I'll take this one, or I'm looking for something casual. These phrases sound more polite and are common in English-speaking countries. Here's an example. A customer says, hi, I'm looking for a jacket, something light for spring. The shop worker says, sure, we have some new ones over here. What size do you need? The customer replies, medium. Do you have it in navy blue? The worker says, yes, I'll get one for you. The customer says, perfect, I'll try it on. This is a simple and natural way to talk while shopping. Another daily situation is ordering food. Whether you're eating at a restaurant or ordering online, you might say things like, can I see the menu? I'll have the, or can we get the bill, please? You might also hear casual phrases like, what do you recommend? Or, this looks amazing. Knowing how to order food in English makes everyday life easier. Here's a practice conversation. The waiter says, good evening. Are you ready to order? The customer replies, yes, I'll have the grilled chicken, please. And could I get a lemonade with that? The waiter asks, would you like any sides? The customer says, fries, please. And can we get the bill when you have a moment? This is a normal way to order food. Now let's talk about asking for directions or using transport. You might ask, how do I get to the train station? Or, is this the right way to the museum? You can also say things like, take the first left, or go straight ahead. These are very useful when you're travelling or walking around town. Here's an example. One person asks, "Excuse me, how do I get to the city library?" The other replies, "Go straight for 2 blocks, then turn right. It's next to the coffee shop." The first person says, "Thanks, that really helps." These are easy and helpful phrases. When you want to invite someone or make plans, you can say, "Would you like to join us?" Or, "How about grabbing lunch sometime?" Or, "Let's meet up this weekend." These are friendly ways to make plans. For example, one person says, "Hey, we're having a picnic on Sunday. Want to come?" The other replies, "Sounds fun. What time?" The first person says, "Around noon at Central Park." The reply is, "Great. I'll bring some snacks." This is how people make casual plans. If you're running late or need to explain something, people often say things like, "Sorry, I'm late. Traffic was bad," or "I completely forgot." These help you deal with everyday problems while being polite. Here's an example. One person says, "Hey, you're late." The other says, "Sorry, I got stuck at work. The meeting took longer than I thought." The first person replies, "No problem. We haven't ordered yet." The other says, "Great. I really need a coffee." These kinds of phrases are helpful in daily life. When someone tells you good or bad news, it's good to know how to respond. If it's good news, say things like, "That's great, congratulations," or "I'm really happy for you." If the news is bad, say things like, "I'm sorry to hear that," or "That must be hard." For example, one friend says, "I got the job." The other replies, "That's awesome. I knew you'd get it." The first says, "Thanks. I start next week." Or if someone says, "My pet is sick," you can reply, "Oh no, I'm sorry to hear that. I hope they feel better soon." These kinds of replies show care and kindness. Talking about feelings is also a part of fluent English. People often say, "I'm feeling a little down today," or "I'm in a great mood," or "That made my day," or "I'm over the moon." These expressions help show how you feel in a more colourful way. For example, someone might say, "I was feeling a bit off this morning, but that walk helped." Or, "You showing up really made my day." Here's a simple chat. One person says, "You seem really happy today." The other replies, "Yeah, I just heard from an old friend I haven't talked to in years." The first person says, "That's so nice. It's great to reconnect." When talking about your daily routine, you can say things like, "I usually get up at 7, have a quick coffee, and head to work." Using words like usually, then, after that, and finally makes your story sound smoother. For example, after breakfast, I check my emails, then I have meetings until lunch. Here's an example. One person asks, "What's your normal weekday like?" The other says, "I get up at 6:30, go for a jog, then make breakfast. After that, I work from home till about 5. In the evening, I relax or cook something nice. This way of speaking sounds more fluent. Agreeing and disagreeing politely is also important. Instead of just saying yes or no, use phrases like, I agree with you, that's a good point, or I see what you mean, but, for example, one person says, I think online classes are better than going to school. The other says, I agree. It saves time and is more comfortable. Or, I get what you're saying, but I think going to school helps students stay more focused. Here's another example. One person says, don't you think city life is too fast? The other replies, I get your point, but I like the energy. It keeps me going. The first says, yeah, I guess it depends on the person. It's also useful to know how to ask for help or offer help in a polite way. You can say things like, could you help me with this? Or, would you mind giving me a hand? Or, want me to take care of that? At work, you could say, could you send that file this afternoon? At home, you might say, want me to help you with the table? Here's a short example. One person says, I'm having trouble carrying these bags. The other says, here, let me help you. The first replies, thanks, I really appreciate it. That's how polite English sounds in daily life. Small talk, like we talked about earlier, is also useful in daily moments. In the elevator, at the store, or waiting for a bus. You can talk about the weather, recent events, or say something nice. For example, nice weather today, right? Or, I like your jacket. Where did you get it? Or, did you see the game last night? Here's an example. One person says, it's been raining all day. The other replies, yeah, I didn't expect that. Looks like it's going to keep raining all week. The first says, I hope not. I've got outdoor plans this weekend. This kind of small talk helps you stay social and fluent. Now let's talk about emergencies or health problems. You might need to say, I'm not feeling well, or I need to see a doctor, or there's been an accident. These phrases are very important. At a clinic, you might hear, what's the problem? You can say, I've had a headache since last night, or I can't breathe well. Here's a short example. One person says, you don't look well. Are you okay? The other says, I've got a bad stomach ache. I need to lie down. The first replies, should I call someone or get you water? The second says, yes, please. That would help. These are important to know. Finally, when it's time to end a conversation, you can say things like, it was great talking to you. Let's catch up soon. Or take care. Or see you around. Or talk to you later. Here's a final example. One person says, I've got to go now. I have a meeting in 10 minutes. The other replies, no problem. It was nice chatting. The first person says, same here. Let's talk again soon. This is a polite way to end a conversation. You've now gone through a lot of helpful phrases and conversations for daily English. Speaking fluent English isn't about using big or fancy words. It's about using everyday phrases in a natural way. The more you practice and say these out loud, the more confident you'll become. Try to use 5 new phrases every day. Even if you talk to yourself, it helps. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every mistake helps you learn. Keep practicing, and fluency will come. Thanks for sticking with this lesson. Keep going, keep speaking, and don't give up.